stand up for affirmation of the resolution the United States federal government should adopt a preferential voting system for presidential elections. First Amendment, basically what the preferential voting system is like you're ranking the candidates. You give like a 1 for your top choice, a 2 for your second top choice, kind of self-explanatory. But most examples of preferential voting systems involve ranking all of the candidates. So that's like kind of the standard for preferential voting systems, and like it has on your ballot basically there's kind of like different columns for all of the for however many candidates there are. There's a number of columns for how many are used. Like put a check mark in the first column for the first choice box for the first top candidate, etc. So basically the plan is just going to be that the United States federal government will adopt a preferential voting system for presidential elections by normal ways and means as soon as possible. Yes.
What's your enforcement mechanism for passing the policies to appropriate agencies?
Means to just going to basically have there's going to be a legislation passed by the federal government that requires state governments to have this preferential voting system in place. It's going to be by normal ways and means, like I said. So like mechanisms would be net benefits, just weigh the benefits of evil versus the detriments. Any other questions about the context? Cool. The first advantage is that of third parties. It is a point of uniqueness. First, in 2018, there was a Gallup poll that showed that a plurality, 42% of Americans don't identify with Republicans or Democrats. Basically, like there's a plurality of people don't identify with the two major parties. Second is that the United States has never had a third party president, someone who wasn't one of these main two parties, which is right now Republicans and Democrats, but in the past been other third party candidates like the Progressive Party in the 1920s. Third, that the United States one-choice policy silences those who vote for third parties because they are steered by others in their state who vote Republican or Democrat. Basically, what you see is like these other like groups of people like within the states who vote Republican or Democrat kind of silence out other people who vote for like third parties. Like you saw like lots of movements on like social media before the 2016 election, like encouraging people not to vote for third party candidates because it was already supposed to be like such a wash and such a like already not going to be a win for those third party candidates. Basically, fourth is that people felt in the 2016 election that they had to choose between the lesser two evils because like it was just told and the system's designed so that it's only going to be the two major party candidates who have even had a chance. And fifth is that voter turnout was at a low of 15%. Visa point at the basically the plan allows citizens' preferences on third party candidates to be taken into account. And so basically like there isn't a like straight majority for one of the major candidates. It's going to be like passed the votes would get passed down to the third party candidates and stuff like that. Basically like your preferences about third party candidates would be like automatically like shown on the ballot and taken into account for voting. C is the internalist. First, this integrates third party candidates into the mainstream election. Little a under this is they're on the ballot more often because like they would literally have to be on the ballot. Wouldn't like all of these third party candidates would just like have to be on the ballot in order to have the ranking occur. A little B under this is that there's a higher chance of being voted for if the two main candidates don't have a majority. Second under the internalist is that this prevents third party votes from being walked out of majority party races. Decent point is the impacts. First, this increases voter turnout because people feel like their votes actually mean something. If they're actually going to like, if third party candidates are actually getting like counted for, they're not going to feel like skewed out of the election because they don't identify with the Republican or Democratic Party. And second impact is it's going to be increasing representation because more people voting will be more representative policies. That means like people will actually get policies that probably benefit them. There will be less of like just basically less policies that are kind of skewed towards like smaller groups of more people who just like didn't turn out to vote because they're like, well, and there's no representation for me anyway. Basically, it diversifies mainstream political opinions. Advantage 2 is government support. A point is uniqueness. First, Trump's approval rating is like gone only between 35% and 45% during the first year of his presidency. Second is that the percentage of people who trust the government in like Washington D.C. always or most of the time is declining on average, with Trump causing like the lowest people who actually agree with this statement. People who think that who trust the government just about always is only 2%, and who trust the government most of the time is only about 15%. This is according to the Pew Research Center. Basically, there's been a trend of like trust in the government going down recently, and when we see that Trump's approval rating is like really, really low, and also that he's caused like the lowest trust in government in like ever, that's going to be like pretty detrimental. The B subpoint is the list. Basically, the plan allows politicians with similar ideologies to their constituents to be elected. So when you have this sort of preferential voting system, maybe like your first choice is Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, for to use the 2016 election as an example. But if they don't gain the majority, then you still like have your vote, your second preference for like Hillary Clinton or for Donald Trump, or whichever like kind of ideology you center with, still like gets taken into account too. So basically, what you're seeing is that even if like the candidate you didn't agree with the most, you're still getting represented by similar ideologies. So C subpoint is the internal. Basically, what this is going to be doing is increasing the faith in the government and trust in it. So basically, kind of reversing this trend that we've had, because people are seeing that like, okay, sure, maybe like not necessarily my top candidate got elected for, but but someone with a similar ideology. So there's still probably going to be like representation for me in the government because of our new preferential voting system. So basically, again, this will be increasing voter turnout. This is the first advantage, and this is going to be really good for democracy, because democracy depends on like actual representation in the polls and like people actually turning out to vote. And there's two key impacts for increasing democracy. First is human rights. There's been a trend like whenever countries like kind of turn towards democracy and like get better democracy within their country, it's better for human rights. Like, there's a pretty clear trend about that. Like most like undemocratic countries have pretty bad human rights because there's no representation and no way to hold like their governments accountable. And like lots of countries will like claim to have democracy, but like don't actually have it because they're like force citizens to vote for certain parties, or they don't have like anyway. So basically, there's a trend of human rights increasing when we have democracies. And the second impact is like a decrease in war. There's never been any instance where two democracies have actually gone to like war with each other. So if we're seeing like even if right now the United States is still a democracy, having that held better and like still having like this really like good democracy and like strengthening it even more, like first of all like lessens the chances of reverting to something that's not a democracy, and second just like increases our like solidifies it even more and like decreases any like possible risk of war with different democracies. So we do that.
Okay, order is going to be case and flop. And before I start, congratulations to Ashland for making it to Octofinal TOC. Okay. And is everyone ready? Let's first hit the plan. So the plan is that, like, there are a few issues with the plan. The first is that the usfg is on cap, which means it's not the government. It's the US Ambassadors Guild, which means that there's no solvency because the Ambassadors Guild can't adopt the preferential voting system for the presidential elections. This is on the text, which means it's probably Biden. We should hold them to their representations. The second argument is that the argument of will in their plan probably implies a statement, a factual statement, which means there's no passage of the plan because only should implies a policy. There's no solvency, and texts are right. Okay, let's go on to the first advantage. On the link level, they talk about how there's going to be more third-party candidates. We see that this third-party candidates uniquely don't have funding because they don't like have national conventions like the Democrats or Republicans do, which probably kills the rest of the solvency for their like third-party point, because it means that there's no representation of third-party candidates. On the second advantage, they talk about government support. Go to the impact level. They talk about human rights violations and decreasing of the war. We see that this is largely non-unique at the point where the United States is already mostly democracy. We don't have like even more of a democracy isn't going to decrease war. We're not going to go to war now. Probably not going to go to war in the world of post-plan, which means it's a unique reason. Let's go on to the off case. The first off is the interpretation. The affirmative must specify a government mechanism to pass policy down to appropriate agencies and oversee their behavior in the PMC. The aff must specify a governmental mechanism to pass the policy down to appropriate mechanisms and oversee behavior in the PMC. The B is a violation. They literally just say like a legislation passed, which means that it goes down to the state. We don't know if they're using a specific agency or a specific department under the executive branch, which gives us less Okay, well, let's go on to the standards. The first argument is ground, which means that ground. I can't choose like different mechanisms. I can't talk about like the specific agencies that I want to pick out of, or like want to change agency piece with. This skews a lot of my ground. The second argument is moving target, because it means that they can like clarify the agent in the MG, which is able to skew like dealing out of the disadvantage I'm going to read, which is probably bad. The third argument is bright line. This is an inline to counter interpretation, because our interpretation is a lot more specific than any counter interpretation, which means that you should buy the interpretation first. But the fourth argument is solvency. There's a double bind here. The first argument, the double bind is that either they specify it, which like they clearly don't, even if they don't specify this guts or solvency, and also that ties to the disadvantage or the theory. The D is the voters, this decreases fairness, because it means that you're skewing us out of a lot of our ground, and it means that I have to read this theory show. This fairness is the interlinked to education, and education is why debate is fun in the first place. If you underview the first argument, is that this is our priority, because it interrogates how we actually debate. The second argument is that you should evaluate computing interpretations of reasonability, because reasonability incentivizes the judge intervention and decreases the education in the debate. The third argument is that this is drop the debater, because there's already been proven abuse. The second off is a disadvantage, Trump-based. The A is the internally, is the uniqueness. The first argument is that Huffington reports in October that Trump's base support is high and grew in the past few years. Additionally, a Gallup poll in February 2018 found that 80% of Republicans are approving of Trump's current measures. The second is that support right now from the right-wing media is really specifically key. 70% of the Trump base trusts Trump more than the mainstream media. The subpoint B is that he's expressing his honest world views right now, and they seem as honest, not willing to go back on promises. The second argument is that Trump base is happy with the way he got elected in the status quo. The B subpoint is the link to the first argument is that the plan is Trump completely shifting his stance on voting. The subpoint A is that Trump says that he wants to stop election meddling, and this plan is seemingly a lot more complicated system, which increases the perception of electors not being secure in their current status quo election system. The subpoint B is that Trump seems to be breaking his promises and his stance, because one of his major goals is preferential. Because one of the main goals of preferential treatment is to make everyone more moderate. This is probably a reason why Trump's base is going to backlash. The second argument is that the base hates the plan because it looks like a promise breaking. The subpoint A is that promises are specifically key in politics. Research from Rutgers University proves that breaking campaign promises that decimates Trump's base. These interlinks the base collapse causes impeachment, because Trump's base is the only reason Republicans aren't impeaching right now, because Republicans in Congress are afraid of being primary in the next election, where they talk like in the midterm election, because they don't want to anger Trump's base, because Trump's base is one of the most outgoing, one of the most turn out demographics. The impacts. The first argument is diversionary war, because Trump will try to start a diversionary war to draw media attention away from this political scandal and decreasing his base. But the second argument is that even if it's that impeachment, because if impeachment happens, that means Pence goes into office, and we say that Pence is arguably way worse than Trump is, because Pence is problematic, but he's also a policymaker, which means that he's able to get his problematic policies through Congress, while Trump, while problematic, doesn't know how to get policies through Congress, which means that things like overturning Roe v. Wade, or other abortion bills, or things like on same-sex marriage are probably going to be overturned. Yeah.
Also on diversionary war is going to go completely
Oh yeah, sure.
nuclear.
Yeah, diversionary war is probably going to go nuclear at the point where the only Trump probably is going to start a war with a big country like China in order to divert media attention. We see that this is uniquely bad. What?
Go for North Korea.
Or North Korea. The next off is the counterplan. The USFG, the U.S. Congress should pass H.J. Res. 19 amendment, which it's an amendment to the Constitution of the United States. U.S. Congress should pass H.J. Res. 19. It's an amendment to the Constitution which abolishes the Electoral College and provides for the direct election of the President and the Vice President of the United States. So basically, abolishes Electoral College. The competition, the first argument, is that it's functionally competitive, because you can't implement preferential voting when there's direct democracy or when there's direct elections. The second argument is that the disadvantage also will bite into the perm. So the perm. If I have time, sorry. The solvency, the first argument is that it solves the entirety of the affirmative, because literally This means one person, one vote. This increased turnout, increased representation, solves for all of the impacts they talk about, like democracy. All of these things are solved by the counterplan. But the second solvency point is, but it's bipartisan, which means it doesn't bite into the disadvantage. The net benefits. The first argument is that avoids the disadvantage. The second argument, there are a few independent net benefits. The first argument, the sub-A is racism. White voters have two times as much influence as minority voters in the electoral college. The sub-point B is political equality. This means one person, one vote, which all increases political equality, probably solves better for the impacts of representation than the affirmative can. The counterplan solves for this. The third net benefit is biopower. The sub-point A is that the electoral college is rooted in biopolitical sovereignty. The state apparatus controls personal right to vote, and the impacts of this is decreased quality of life because decreased value of life because the life is completely controlled and written off as statistics like in the biopolitical state apparatus. But the solvency, because we are able to solve for this because we eliminate the electoral college, increases agency and individual sovereignty. Underview, affirming is easier than negating. There are two reasons for this. The first is they are able to parameterize the ground, which means they have more ground. The second argument is perception. They have to speak first and lastly. Implications of this. The first is you should impact turn all fairness claims on theory. But the second argument is that the app doesn't get access to RVIs because this like you can look to the reasons that we say earlier. The third argument is that you should have a high threshold for MT3 because the app has access to like golden turns in the PMR, and also you can look at like the reasons we said before.
Alright, everybody ready? Yeah. I'm going to go into theory. Our case. Oh, wait, actually, we're going to go our case. Theory. Theory, presumption. And then their case. Oh, no,
CP first.
Yeah. Oh, by presumption, do you mean like the arguments we read on the plan? Or
No, the underview.
The underview, oh, okay.
Okay, so, sorry, can you repeat the order?
Yeah, so, our case. Theory. Our case in order. Theory. Counterplan, DA. And are you going over the underview at all? Oh, yeah, oh, right, that's sorry. So that's after. Okay. After the counterplan? Okay, yeah. Wait. App in order. Theory. Presumption. Okay. CPD. Okay, awesome. Yeah. Okay. Alright. Everybody good? Alright, starting time. Now let's move to our first advantage. Their response was that third parties don't have their main first on the USFG thing, basically they literally never asked us to clarify when we asked that we said we would be doing this through normal ways and means, and they never asked us to clarify what the USFG meant. Basically we literally were do you have any questions? And they said no. If they wanted us to clarify, they should have done that.
Also, I'm saying the United States federal
also,
government.
she said the United States federal government when she was reading it. I just abbreviated it on the sheet they gave to us. There's no way they could have. We gave them the opportunity to clarify, and they didn't take it. Now on to the advantage, which is third parties. Basically, they said that third parties don't have funding, so they'll never be able to solve. But the thing is, when they start getting votes, that means they start getting publicity. Having those votes there to begin with is what gives these people funding and what gives them that support. If these people are never going to win, then obviously they aren't going to have funding because no one's going to have any incentive to even be involved in their campaigns in the first place. Obviously, when there's an actual potential for these parties to actually gain leverage in any sort of way, and the system actually allows for them to gain leverage and votes and things like this, and when they're on the ballot, so they have more publicity, we're going to be seeing that more funding steps, but we still have solvency now to advantage to their confidence. Also, more votes equals they get more money from the governments, and that means they gain more publicity, which solves that. Okay, on to advantage to government confidence. Basically, they say that the entire thing is non-unique, but what you're going to be seeing is that government confidence is really important right now. Just because we're not in a war right now, doesn't mean that we shouldn't have good government confidence. Government confidence is really good for having domestic policies play out in a good way. When you see right now that there isn't a lot of support behind Trump, and there's a lot of backlash and things like this. It's really hard for policies to be enacted because because there's so much like division and polarization. Yeah.
So you say that more votes for third party candidates means more government support and money. Why?
There's these like there's these campaign funds that the government can provide to local parties that like have a certain amount of votes. When third parties get these votes, they're able to get these funds. You can check these off on your tax forms to like give money to certain like campaigns and things like this. Okay. Now to the theory. Also extend like human rights and things like this, and democracy and representation, because like these things are really key, and especially like under Trump right now, where there's a lot of polarization. It makes it like really hard for like good legislation and representative legislation to be passed. Extend all the links on the advantages. Okay. Now theory. First is they say that the affirmative must like specify what their actor is. First we meet because basically they asked about our enforcement mechanism. My partner said normal ways and means, and we asked if like they were all good, and they said yeah. Yeah. We meet theirs because we tell you that the legislation is being passed. That's like a government organization. Like we it is a governmental mechanism. Like we totally meet. And counterinterpretation. Like if the act specifies AF must specify a governmental mechanism to pass policy down to appropriate agencies. And oversee their behavior in the PNC unless when prompted the neg says like they're good. Basically they asked about our enforcement mechanism. She said normal ways and means, then asked if they were all good. They said yeah, meaning that there was no way for us to like be able to determine like that they had a problem even with this. So now let's go to their standards. Basically they said like ground predictability and a bunch of stuff. Like they literally lose no ground because they could have asked these questions, but they didn't even give us the chance to offer it. Basically they were literally just like theory baiting us by not even offering to like asking these questions in the first place, with like puts aside disadvantage. Okay, so basically just like group all their standards together. They were never at disadvantage because they could have like POIs exist for a reason. They're to be able to clarify. In fact, counter standards. First, breadth of education. They're taking our education by running this like BS theory shell, which basically just like lets them like talk about like we didn't do like one small thing that they literally couldn't clarify. Like we have rules in debate that make it so that you can clarify certain arguments, and they like take this away from us and start like talking about theory. Then breadth of education because we counter standard breadth of education because basically now we're not talking about like the actual policies which we came here to debate, and we're not talking about specific like niche. We shouldn't be talking about like specific like niche things in the government, which like Congress doesn't even talk about. Congress talks about how policies they enact like actually like affect the world and things like that. Not like how will we get it to this committee and then they'll do this. Like that's a complete waste of time. That's not what representatives do, and we're like we're like role playing the policymakers here, so we should be trying to do it the way like governments actually do it, rather than just like nitpicking at like the various like committees this type of legislation goes through to be like enacted in the real world. Additionally, you should be weighing on reasonability. If we're reasonable, we meet. And then you should be dropping the argument, not the debater, because like to be proportional, like you should just be allowing us to like win on a case. And if we're not abusive, then like there's no reason for us to vote us down. If you're not seeing any proven abuse, which you're not because there's a counterplan and all these things, then we have plenty of things to work with. Okay, now onto presumption or underview. Basically, the fact that they offer a counterplan gets rid of presumption. They're literally able to offer an infinite number of advocacies, which means that you're probably voting AF on presumption because we literally do not know what they're going to run. In fact, we had to prep out like answers to like like one person, one vote, and like all these alternative like abolishing the electoral college like counterplans. They have literally infinite advocacies they can run. That means that it's going to ultimately be harder for AF is bound to the resolution, and they could literally have the potential to run like an infinite number of counterplans, and then just like kick the ones we make the most response to, and then just like go with one. That means you're probably voting AF.
You say evaluate theory on reasonability. Can you define what reasonability is? What's specific by one?
If there is no proven abuse in the ground. Okay. Now to the burn. The counterplan. Okay. You can literally throw the counterplan because all they do is get rid of the electoral college. Like we can get rid of the electoral college too. If the electoral college is inherently bad, like we can do both. Like people are able to rank and there's no more electoral college. Like there. Also, preferential voting is literally one person, one vote. Like they don't really like change anything that allows them to garner impacts. In fact, like they literally just like entrench the like two-party system, which makes it so that they aren't actually like changing the status quo. Like it's still going to be one person, one vote for like either side. They don't actually do anything to help third-party candidates.
But also turn electoral college bad because representation for
electoral college bad. Getting rid of electoral college bad because they literally get rid of any representation for rural areas. That means that literally Hillary Clinton could go to New York, LA, and like Dallas, and basically get the votes she needed to like win the entire election. Like when you're basing it off of like, and there's different interests in rural areas that like want to be represented. However, when you literally allocate it to population, like it makes it so that like only urban interests will be reflected in policy, which is going to be really bad. And they can like representation. Okay. Now to the DA. Basically, they say that Trump's base will Trump's will lose his base if with preferential voting. But what you're going to be seeing is that there isn't really a link here. There's no reason why Trump's base is going to go down just because you have preferential voting. And additionally, they give you no warrant for why his base will actually decrease. Does his base even know about what these types of voting are and how he brought his votes? Probably not.
Probably the basic citizen.
Probably, yeah, the basic citizen doesn't even actually care about this and won't just won't stop supporting someone they supported just because the voting system changed. Onto impacts, which is probably Trump will say he can also win in the preferential voting, so they still don't get any solvency. Onto impacts. Basically, they say Trump's going to start diversionary war. There's literally no level of disapproval that will cause it. Trump literally has some of the lowest disapproval ever, and the fact that he hasn't started a diversionary war probably means that he never will. Trump really talks the talk, but he never actually walks the walk. He's not actually going to use nukes or any of these things. He does fiery tweets, but never actually has any fiery action that comes with them ever. He's never had any of these fiery actions. Additionally, they're not actually going to impeach Trump because no level of disapproval will cause a diversionary war, and they won't actually impeach Trump. Okay.
Alright, give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm good. Order is going to be, yeah, I know. Order is going to be theory briefly. The underview, half in order, and then
theory, half in order.
Sorry, theory, underview, half in order, CPDA. Actually, sorry. Sorry. Order's gonna be theory, underview, CP, half in order, DA. Everyone good? Just warning, I'm a little sick right now, so maybe if I'm not clear enough, just clear me. On to the theory, first of all, extend the we made that probably sure, we're not going for theory. They made this interpretation. Don't let them extend any offense because the we made a terminal defense onto the argument, the one offensive argument that they make on breadth of education. They talk about how we're literally just taking away all the education in the round. We argue that theory education is still a form of education, which probably means that they're they cannot garner any offense off of that standard.
No RBI don't.
Also, no RBIs. They didn't read this RBI in the MG, which probably means that don't let them extend an RBI in the last speech. On to the underview. First of all, we never made a presumption or a neg presumption argument, which means that the after presumption argument is literally floating in midair. But sure, we argue that after the presumption, we're still probably winning on the entire case debate. On to the counterplan. Our opponents make a really crucial mistake here. They drop the argument my partner makes about how the counterplan is able to solve for the entirety of the affirmation. We specifically give you analysis on why the counterplan is able to access more direct votes in people, which means that third-party candidates are still going to be able to be pulled up. Additionally, we also argue that we are able to solve for advantage too because the counterplan means that people are going to be able to be more represented among the entire system, which means that we're going to be solving all of their offense. That probably means the affirmation has 0 offense you can be voting off because they have 0 unique offense you can be voting off because they never read any arguments to why there is a solvency deficit to the counterplan. That probably means that you have to be voting negation right now because the affirmation has literally 0 to no offense. Don't let them come up in the last speech and read arguments on why the CP is not able to solve as well as the plan because they don't read that in the MG and in the PMR. That would be a completely new argument. Onto the perm. We argue that the entire disadvantage is a disadvantage to the perm. That is why you cannot be buying the perm. Additionally, perm is not an advocacy, not a test of competition. Do not let them extend the perm as an advocacy in the last speech because that would be completely shifting their advocacy onto the argument about how the electoral college decreases representation in rural areas. We argue that this is not a unique detriment to the counterplan. We argue that this detriment still applies to their plan because their plan literally makes people have to vote directly. That probably means that Hillary Clinton only has to win a few states as well. There's no reason why this natural detriment doesn't apply to their plan, but additionally extend all the 3 net benefits we read on racism, on political equity, on decreasing biopower. We terminalize all these impacts into dehumanization, and we also directly tell you why these impacts really matter in this round, which means that all of these net benefits are going to outweigh this one little thing that they put on here. Yeah.
Also, they don't articulate that the perm captures the impacts of the net benefits. So
they also don't articulate that the perm captures the impacts of the net benefits of the counterplan, which probably means that you cannot be buying the perm on this. Additionally, extend all the argument. Extend all the solvency argument arguments, they don't respond to this, which means that the counterplan has full solvency. On to the topic case. Sure, we concede, Faster's Guild, whatever. They also, I'm just going to point out to you that they never responded to the will as should argument. We're not going to go for this argument, but we argue that if there is an out and around, the problem means that the affirmation has zero solvency of their plan text because the plan text says will. That means that it's a statement of fact. Do not let them come up in the last speech and respond to this because they have failed to do so in the MG. On to the, but we're not going for that argument, but if you want to vote on it, go ahead. Yeah, that means that they have no solvency. That means that you can't vote off. On to the case.
And extend they concede text is binding.
Yeah, they also concede that text is binding, which is more important than anything that they say, which probably means that we still win those arguments. On to the case. On to the first argument on third-party candidates, we still argue that there's obviously just still not going to be funding. They talk about how there are, there's still obviously going to be no more funding. They talk about how like there will be like campaign funds from the United States federal government to fund these third parties, but we argue that these third parties are probably not going to be able to pick up those funds in the first place because the system is already set as such a binary that there is literally no space for them to go into the political system, and it's just so that means that the first advantage is no solvency. Even if there is no solvency, we extend the argument that the plan is able to solve for all their offense, which means that you cannot let them go for any of these impacts. On to the second argument on government support. We straight up impact. We straight up put terminal defense on the impacts. They literally there's no war happening right now, which probably means that the impact of democracy probably doesn't matter. Also, there's literally no war impact right now, which probably means that you can be evaluating this impact because it's not making a change in the status quo. Additionally, they talk about how government confidence is key for domestic policies. Literally no war. They don't give you a specific policy that has been passed that is significantly better because of government confidence. That probably means that you can't be buying this. Additionally, don't buy new analysis on this in POR because they had the chance to clarify that in the MG at the point where an impact is not terminalized. Do not let them terminalize it for you in the POR after I've reminded them to do so. Additionally, we also solve for this entire advantage even if you let them gain any offense off of it. Ultimately, there's literally no choice but to vote neg. You're going to be voting neg in this debate round because we are the only team that gets any offense off of our disadvantage. At the point where they have completely conceded all of the link story on the Trump-based disadvantage, you can extend the links about how this directly shifts voting, the way that Trump thinks about voting. You can extend the link about how this significantly, this looks like Trump is trying to destroy election security, which is a campaign promise that he has specifically had. Trump is
argument, please.
Yeah. You have conceded the link that passing the AF policy directly reverses Trump's ideas on election security, which means that it looks like he's breaking campaign promises. You've completely conceded that argument. You've also conceded that argument about. I'll go into it. Yeah. They also concede the argument that this specific policy looks like it's trying to make people who are running for office look significantly more moderate, which is directly going against every single promise that Trump has made. That probably means that we're going to be gaining full access to these links. Additionally, go on to the second link. The second link says that breaking campaign promises are probably the most important thing for the election because that is the biggest perceptual impact in the round. That probably means that people in Trump's base are going to be incredibly upset at him. Also, extend the internal link where we tell you that Trump's base is key to making sure that Trump doesn't get impeached. The only reason why he is not impeached right now is because Trump's base is trying to support them. The only also extend the uniqueness. It probably means that we're controlling the entire uniqueness debate over this. At the point where all this is conceded, do not. I will. Do not let them come up and try to refute this. Additionally, if they try to make any arguments about how our uniqueness doesn't matter, extend the fact that we have cited multiple polls about how Trump's popularity is high right now. Onto the impact, they talk about how the only defense that they put on the impacts is that diversionary war would never happen because we're not in a war right now. Didn't Trump launch Tomahawk missiles in Syria when he got mad? Yeah. That is proof right there that diversionary war could happen. Additionally, we also argue that this diversionary war is extremely likely in the status quo at the point where we are in a trade war with China, and also North Korea tensions are escalating significantly, which gives Trump more of an excuse to do this. That probably means that we gain access to this full diversionary war impact at the point where they completely concede the uniqueness, the links, the internal links, and the impacts of this advantage. They do not put any defense or any offense on this. That problem means that we are controlling the entire debate right now because the only team that is getting on any offense in this round is the neg right now.
extend the specific link that
Yeah.
it's a campaign promise?
Yeah, I
and
did.
rumors, did you have?
I did. Also extend a Reuters warrant that probably means that you have to be voting on this. Like, at the point where we give you factual analysis, which means that you can't be intervening against this argument, but also at the point where my opponents completely concede this argument and don't say anything to it, that probably means that we're going to be terminally winning on this. Ultimately, neg and af are basically doing the exact same thing in this round, except the negation is able to gain access to a unique disadvantage. When af drops, that the negation solves for the entirety of the case, you're going to be voting neg.
Okay, so order's gonna be theory or overview, theory, case, CP, DA. Repeat it. Overview, theory, case, CP, and
Case in order.
Well, I'm kind of just gonna be going over top of case. Well, no, case in order is fine. Okay. Theory, case in order, CP, DA. Everything okay?
The overview, you're voting negative because the counterplan solves the entirety of the affirmative, which is conceded by the MGU, and the risk of the disadvantage happening outweighs any offense because there is literally no unique offense the counterplan solves. But let's go on theory. They say we mean extend this terminal defense. They don't read an RVI, which means you can't give them access to theory as a voter issue. Let's go on a case. Extend that will implies a statement, which means that there's no passage of the plan. Extend that there's no solvency. Extend that they concede there's no solvency. The app literally has no solvency at this point, which means that like you can't vote for the app,
Also,
right?
don't intervene against this argument.
Yeah,
They
also-
don't tell you that
Also,
this-
don't intervene against this argument, even if it's like blippy and like has no warrants or some shit. Like they don't respond to it, which means that like it's probably
like
true.
you have no choice but
Yeah,
to
which
validate.
means you have no choice but to respond to it. But also on the rest of the case, I'm going to group advantage 1 and 2. So basically, these are all solved by the CP. I specifically make articulation that the counterplan is able to be solved because it increases the one person, one vote sentiment, which is key to representation and to voter turnout. Let's go on to the counterplan now. Overview on the counterplan. The counterplan solves case, and the perm has no offense, which means that because it bites the disadvantage and doesn't actually link to the unique net benefits of the counterplan. Specifically, the perm bites the disadvantage that Trump base. We specifically make the articulation that the counterplan is bipartisan, while the plan is not. This means that the plan will trigger political
Point of
backlash.
stop time.
Sure.
The argument that the counterplan is bipartisan.
This
No,
is made out
it's-
of the 1
It was
NC.
made out of the 1NC. It
Yeah,
was
under the
in the
second
solvency, which I
solvency.
also extended.
Judge's discretion.
Point not well taken.
Okay.
And because it's bipartisan means that the plan will trigger unique political backlash. This probably kills the perm right there, but also they don't link their perms, they don't articulate that their perm also linked to the net benefits of racism, political equality, and biopower. These arguments are probably also reasons why the permutation just doesn't solve overall. Yeah, also the rural argument is applied to both plans, both advocacies, which means that there's no unique way to weigh that. Which means that, like, basically, counterplan solves case is probably an independent voting issue because it already has net benefits. Without the disadvantage, this counterplan still is able to win the negative round because we're solving the case, and have unique net benefits of solving biopower, racism, and political equality that they don't articulate is under the world of the affirmative, which means that you could vote right here on the negative. Let's go on the disadvantage. The disadvantage is specifically we're winning. We're controlling the uniqueness scenario that literally Trump's base is the only important political demographic, which means that only turning Trump's base is the only way political backlash would occur. We have specific articulation that the Gallup poll in February 2018 found that 80% of Republicans approve of Trump's measures, which means that because our warrant is like more recent and more credible, it means that we're controlling the uniqueness scenario. Because this warrant is able to support the rest of the uniqueness scenario that we're generating. This ultimately means that we're controlling the uniqueness debate. Let's go on the links. They only talk about like this like weird blippy no link scenario. There's just no reason. But you can extend specific articulation I made about how this is a key campaign promise. Like this means Trump is reversing his campaign promise. That is key because it turns the entirety of the Trump base against him and gives us access to our impacts. We're clearly winning the link debate. You can extend the Reuters warrant about how breaking campaign promises are specifically decimate Trump's base. This warrant right here is enough to give us credence to the impact. Let's go on the impacts. They first talk about how diversionary war is never going to happen. Like, even if it's never going to happen, it probably increases tensions. It probably increases things like it probably increases geopolitical tensions. But also, extend my partners warned about how like Trump literally fired Tomahawk missiles because he was mad about like his political stuff. Additionally, you can also extend the second impact on Pence. We talk about how if impeachment happens, that means Pence is able to pass his problematic policies into Congress and into law, which means that things like abortion will be reversed, that causes things like death. You ultimately were voting on the counterplan at disadvantage because the CP solves case and the risk of a disadvantage outweighs outlays.
We're just going to read the DA. Actually, CP first. CPDA.
CPDA is an admin order, right?
Yeah, I mean, like an overview, but it's overview on top, like you can put on the CP sheet or something. Anyone not ready? Cool. My opponents make a fatal flaw by dropping like the fact that the perm exists. That there is no way that there is no unique offense within the negative world because everything that they talk about that they're solving about like racism and biopower within the counterplan can occur in the affirmative world at the point where the CP is not mutually exclusive and they like concede that throughout the round. So
Point of order. So the argument, like the specific articulation that racism, political equality, and biopower are able to happen in the affirmative world is a new argument. I know you made the perm argument in the MG, but you didn't specifically link it to the net benefits.
I mean, I feel like it's pretty straightforward that the perm means that the CP happens, and so it's just like cross-applying the CP arguments into the affirmative world. Okay, then on our disadvantages or our like analysis about why the CP is bad, they say that this isn't unique and that like people are voting directly in the like affirmative world too. But the key point here is that in the affirmative world there there is still the electoral college, which is allowing for a specific voting for people in rural areas and allowing for them to actually be represented within the government and within like the presidential elections, while without the electoral college it's literally just going to be by a popular vote, which means that it's just going to be based on like inside cities where there's the most areas of people condensed, and that means that only urban interests are going to be represented. So there's still that like they have this unique detriment to the counterplan about taking away like rural representation from like the presidential Congress. And again, as we like articulate multiple times throughout the debate, representation in the government is like key to human rights and like the only like a fundamental human right. So you're voting for the affirmative on the fact that A, the CP is bad, and B, like any offense gained from the CP occurs in the affirmative world. On the DA, extend my partner's analysis specifically about how Trump supporters aren't going to be caring about about like how the electoral system works and how like these changes occur within like these systems. Okay, sorry. Specifically about how Trump's voters like aren't going to be caring about this at the point where you're seeing that like they probably like don't care specifically about the minutiae of the electoral system that's going to be like well they try to tell you that like this is a campaign promise at the point.
Yes, I'm curious, really low.
Extend he also has like really low approval ratings right now, meaning that's not going to be unique if like his like the little bit of base doesn't like it anymore. Doesn't like him anymore. Basically, like, no level of disapproval is going to cause this. Like, it wasn't a disapproval issue that caused the, like, Tomahawk missile specifically to be launched. It was, like, it was about, like, DACA or something else. It was about, like, a policy plan within Congress. It's not, like, about what his voters think of him at the time. Like, if this was truly, like, occurring, then there would be a new, like, missile launch every time the percentage approval rating of Trump goes down. So, that's like terminal defense on the DA at the point where like they don't care about it. They don't even actually ever give like any response to this except just trying to like continue articulating that it was a campaign promise without actually giving like any warrant for like how Trump specifically talked about this as a campaign promise. On the affirmative,
Point of order. The specific articulation that it has to be something that Trump has specifically talked about as a campaign promise is a new articulation. I have direct responses to this, but I can't.
The argument that we shouldn't buy the campaign promise thing because there's no warrants is probably new.
I mean, it's just kind of like condensing the argument down. Like saying no warrant is kind of just like the kind of impact weighing of this area, but we still have like other arguments on this DA. So okay. the affirmative. Now onto the affirmative case. They try to so first they try to make this argument about like how everything how this isn't just a statement, it's not going to happen, but literally like everything's a statement, every sentence they said. Like you buy this argument that like Will just makes a statement, then like nothing they ever say is going to happen. It's all statements too. But like they said, they're not going for it, so it's probably not going to be a On the first advantage about third parties, extend the unique points about how they're still silencing third-party voters in their world. That 42% of people don't identify with the Republican or Democrat Party. The Electoral College doesn't give you any unique way to like solve for third-party voters at the point where it still like doesn't actually allow for like more different candidates to be on the ballot, and at the point where the preferential voting system is the only way to actually put like other third-party voters in the world. Like at the point where our plan literally requires everyone to vote for every single candidate that is on the ballot, that means that people are still actually having to pay attention to the third-party votes, and we're still accessing those impacts about increasing voter turnout. Like they are still silencing third-party votes. So it, basically when they try to say they try to argue that there's like no solvency on this point, but like we specifically give you analysis about how the third parties are actually going to be on the ballot for once, and even if if they're not winning election, because the United States federal government gives campaign funds to parties that have a certain number of votes in the like general election, that means that there's probably going to be at least some increase in the prevalence of the third party parties like in the presidential elections in the future. On the government support, their only terminal defense is on the war impact, so extended human rights impact, about how we're still having like increased faith in the government and trust in it because you're actually going to be like, because most people were mad in the 2016 elections because they had to choose between two evils. And that was the like analysis, and that was the scenario put out on social media and told to pretty much every single voter like in the United States. And what the affirmative uniquely solves for is that like even if people talk about like it being lesser or worse evil, everyone has to vote on all of these third-party candidates, and that's going to be increasing this representation. They brought my link about how the plan allows politicians with similar ideologies to the constituents to be elected, meaning you're still seeing this representation, which is a key human right. So at the end of the day, you're voting for the affirmative because like we solve like all of their offense can happen in the affirmative world. The CP like has a unique detriment to it, and we have terminal defense on the DA.